tarnished that I like. I pray for you.
Pray? Whoa there, buddy. I don't believe in fairy tales.
What's a deal?
Reddit mods. Now, if you're not aware, Reddit mods are people that spend the majority of their time on Reddit, often moderating multiple subreddits. These people are often socially awkward, very weird, and physically out of shape, which makes them the perfect candidate to do a meme-based run through Elden Ring. Now, as I've already done with Minecraft, I'll be putting a Reddit mod into Elden Ring, playing through the game to see if I can beat it. Now, what does that mean? For one, the Reddit mod will only be able to wear his fedora as armor, as any other armor would aggravate his eczema and probably wouldn't fit right on his thick thighs. Another is that all of his animations will be 20% slowed. This doesn't sound like much, but believe me, in a fast-paced game like Elden Ring, this makes a massive difference. Additionally, the Reddit mod will always be under heavy load, so he will get the slowest, clunkiest roll in the game. This is commonly known as fat rolling. Finally, the Reddit mod will be forced to have 0 faith, 0 arcane, and 0 endurance throughout the entire run without the ability to level them up or use any item that gives you those stats. The Reddit mod will have half the endurance of a normal level 1 character, and of course he can't level arcane or faith because he doesn't believe in fairy tales, as stated earlier. This comes from the subreddit r/atheism, which I usually think of when I think of Reddit, so with that, let's get into it and find out if our Reddit mod can beat Elden Ring. So our Reddit mod is teleported into the world of Elden Ring with nothing but a katana he doesn't know how to use and his fedora. And yeah, of course he couldn't beat this guy, he's way too agile. I decided to do the tutorial just to get a gauge for how hard this run would be, and ooh. Yeah, it took me 4 attempts to kill the Soldier of Godrick. The slow rolls were really hurting me, and I felt like a games journalist, not even being able to defeat the tutorial. I do think not having the stats to use my katana was a big factor here, so that was some good news. After fishing for a lot of backstabs, I was eventually able to triumph, and I had my first boss down. And just like that, this Reddit mod had been unleashed upon the lands between, ready to spread his message that the Elden Beast is not real. My first objective was obviously to get the stats to use the Uchigatana properly, that way I don't have to fish for backstabs on every enemy I encounter. And while doing so, I met my waifu for the run.
Have you heard of the Finger Maidens?
Well, I've heard about it, but I've never actually, done it.
But you,
Okay, don't rub it in, lady.
I can play the role of maiden.
Oh, yes, m'lady. And just like that, this moderator found the woman that he was going to be simple for. Because of course, Reddit mods have a code of ethics when dealing with lady. He's gotta at least smell me coming, right? Come back here, boomer. You ruined the economy. I have to get revenge. While you were getting women, I was mastering the blade. After a bit of grinding, I now have the stats to use the Uchigatana, and man, it is so much better. So much easier. Of course, I still had to be careful and very sneaky. Attracting multiple enemies at once was almost certain death.
Before the tarnished tire of obeisance to the 2 fingers.
I'll obey you, mommy, I know that. After all the waifu introductions, it was time to make my way up towards Margit as my first big boss. Oh, by the way, I've banned the use of torrent for getting around the lands between, so big boy got a run for it.
I want to be like everyone else, but I'm nothing but a...
You and me both, lady. First fight with Margit time. Oh, and I'm using Spirit Ashes. This run is fully 100% impossible without them. fat rolling and being 20% slower is so devastating against some of these faster bosses, like for example Margit, as you'll see here. But yes, definitely impossible without spirits, and I'm going to be using any means necessary that I can to advance. Anyway, I wasn't even close to killing Margit there, so I had to go back to the round table and cope by being the first Reddit mod to ever touch a woman ever. Take a look. Hey look, I found the missing link between humans and monkeys for evolution. Take that, Christians. Okay, getting back on track. In order to better prepare myself for Margit, I went around and gathered the sacred tears that increase the amount that your Estus heals, as well as many weapon upgrades and a few talismans from defeating bosses. And there was definitely a lot of struggling in this section, but ultimately it wasn't too hard. It was time to give Margit another go. Oh, and the flask and the glintstone pebble show that I can't use them, but that's only because everything shows that you can't use it when you're below level 0. Which I am because I have 0 of 3 stats. But yes, Margit was much, much easier, and I have to say the Fanged Imps are a very good early game summon. Their doing of bleed damage is just incredible. With Margit out of the way, it was time to run through Stormveil Castle and challenge Godrick for my first great rune. And this was rough, probably about a dozen or so deaths, but can I just say that the unsheathed weapon art is actually really underrated and hits like a truck. I eventually made it to Godrick, and he was much more of a challenge than he normally is. He has a lot of AoEs for killing my Fanged Imps, and when he gets up and close, his normally slow attacks are now much faster than the Reddit mod, so it was tough to deal with. Yeah, Godrick definitely gave me a bit of trouble. Take a look. After about a dozen or so attempts, I decided to leave, grind some levels and upgrade materials, and later come back. Ooh, Vormami is eating a feast tonight. Getting back to Godrick with much more powerful magic and a further upgraded Fanged Imp Spirit Ash, he was much easier this time. With my first great rune in my pocket, I'm obviously going to take the path of least resistance and go to the next easiest great rune, Rennala, which requires sneaking past this dragon to get the key to the academy, but this was surprisingly easy. He didn't even hit me here. And my run through the academy did have a few deaths, but ultimately I think it was even easier than Stormveil. What do y'all think? What's harder, the Academy or Stormveil? Including the boss, by the way. I think Godrick actually might be harder than Rennala. Rennala's dog that she took in the divorce did manage to kill me once, but his HP was too low for him to be a real problem. Thanks, Fanged Imps. At this point I went to go get the Magic Resist Talisman, which requires killing this bear in this cave in Limgrave. Oh, and also I had to grab some upgrade materials to get a more powerful weapon for the Rennala fight. He killed me through a wall, not fair. Anyway, getting back to the academy, I skillfully evaded this ball by clipping through it, and then I bamboozled the Carrion Knight. Haha, get outplayed. He clearly didn't watch enough Rick and Morty. On to the Rennala fight, and it wasn't anything particularly interesting. I killed the 3 ankle biters, then killed Rennala in 2 goes. I didn't have enough stamina to kill her in 1 go. And then I first tried the second phase of her fight. The Fanged Imps help a lot. They procced bleed on her, but yeah, it was just decent execution and a bit of an over-leveled weapon. And just like that, I had the 2 required great runes to move on in the game, which means I could go get the 2 halves of the Medal of Dectus to access that lift and get up to the Altus Plateau without having to battle a boss. Oh, and I picked up a fancy new katana along the way. And just like that, I was up the lift and onto the Altus Plateau. Now there's a lot of obstacles between me and the capital. How did I get past them? Of course, by using the most underhanded strategy possible, sneaking past everything. Which was surprisingly effective. The tree sentinels didn't even smell me. After grabbing a few quick upgrades in the nearby mines, it was time to fight the Draconic tree sentinel. My first thought was to try to quickly proc rot on him and then have the Fanged Imps maybe distract him for a little while. And this strategy did not work at all. He jumped out of the way very quickly and then beat my butt. His attacks were very quick and very powerful, to the point where my Reddit Moderator body couldn't get out of the way and got smashed into bits quickly. Remembering back to my Rune Level 1 playthrough, I remember you can cheese this guy with Poison Mist. But unfortunately, that spell requires faith. But you know what doesn't require faith? The Ash of War Poisonous Mist. I don't know how he doesn't hear this happening right behind him, but he doesn't, so this strategy is technically doable. The problem with this strategy is that each poison only does 656 damage to him, so I would have to poison him like 10 times in order to kill him. And there's a very precise window on distance you can be away when you do the weapon art that poisons him but doesn't aggro him, so I accidentally aggroed him a bunch of times while trying to execute this cheese. This resulted in many deaths for me. I died well over a dozen times to this guy. Getting pancaked is always funny. I love that animation. Eventually, I got this down to a precise science where I knew exactly which of these yellow flowers I needed to stand on in order to not aggro him and also get the poison to proc. This is why I love challenge runs like this. This type of hyper-specific cheese to a boss is just fantastic, I think. There's no other situation anyone would ever need to do this except this one, so I hope you enjoy this, dear viewer. A well-earned point down. Now that I was in the capital, I went around the map and gathered some upgrades. I'm talking Night Sorceries. In my opinion, Night Sorcery is the best sorcery to use for PvE because the enemies don't know how to dodge it since it's invisible to them or whatever. And to get the Night Sorceries I wanted, I had to unlock Go-Re as a merchant, which involved doing Millicent's quest, which involved killing Commander Omen. Oh, and the end of this fight is pretty epic. Watch. So I ended up saving Millicent, who is the best Elden Ring waifu, bar none. I will not hear otherwise in my comments section, okay? I don't want to hear any of that ranty nonsense. Anyway, after getting a night sorcery and figuring out that this guy is actually a bug, I made my way back to the capital.
In realizing you have fought long and hard.
You've made me long and hard, haha. Running through the capital wasn't too hard. This guy did manage to body block me twice, getting me killed. Man, that was some BS. Before long, I made it to Ghost Godfrey, and he really wasn't that much of an issue. I had the putrid corpses on my side, and they are tanks, and provided a lot of aggro taking for me. Add in the night sorceries, doing a butt ton of damage, as you can see here, and it was easy peasy, first try. Next up was Morgott, and oh boy, this is where things got difficult. Morgott is extremely fast, much faster than a Reddit mod. So much so, in fact, that if he aggroed on me at any point in Phase 2, I was basically dead. There was no hope. With the 20% slowdown and fat rolling, it is legitimately impossible to dodge some of his attacks. At this point, I decided to go back and get some better magic gear, which involved doing Selvis's questline in order to try to get the magic scorpion charm. And I think it's hilariously on brand for a Reddit mod to go through a quest that involves poisoning a woman to death in order to turn her into a doll. And I'm pretty sure Selvis is like a weeb or a Reddit mod or something, because he has this dungeon full of dolls, and then later he like leans in real close and tells me about his plot to get the ultimate waifu doll. Or something to that effect. He really wants to feel the Ranussi. Anyway, he eventually gives me the scorpion charm, and then I make my way back to the capital for a rematch with Morgott. And it was still extremely difficult. My damage output was a bit higher, but I was taking more damage too, which means anytime Morgott got close to me, and I couldn't get away or distract him with my spirit summons, I was basically dead. Fighting Morgott while fat rolling with 40 stamina by itself would be terrible, let alone being 20% slow. This was rough. I had to stop several times to go grind out levels and get more intelligence so I could be doing more damage. I eventually was able to get lucky and overcome him. The putrid corpses are really tanky. They're a very underrated summon for the cost that they are. And look at him walking over to Morgott's shriveled corpse, probably to drop their rotting nutsack on him. Anyway, the Erd Tree is too pointy to enter, so me and Waifu go on a quest to commit arson. And that means that it's time for the long walk to the fire giant and his bowl of fire. And it had a bit of difficulty here and there, but it really wasn't all that bad. Even at 80% speed, I was able to run past most things first try. Well, not freezing Dragon Boy. He got me a good few times. Before long, I was very close to the fire giant. And I cheesed him. Yeah, sorry if you were looking forward to an epic fight between the Reddit mod and the fire giant, but this playthrough is really about can a Reddit mod beat Elden Ring, not should a Reddit mod be able to beat Elden Ring. I actually died like 15 times trying to set up this cheese, which is kind of pathetic, but this is also the same cheese that I did in my level 1 playthrough, which you know about only if you're a really hardcore troglodyte fan.
To commit a cardinal sin.
Actually, God's not real, sin is made up. And then, the one woman in the world who ever liked a Reddit mod committed an act of suicidal arson. It really goes to show how crazy you have to be attracted to Reddit mods. Then, for some reason, I got teleported to Detroit, where the locals didn't take kindly to my presence. Man, isn't George R.R. Martin just a wonderful writer? After a bit of struggling, I made it to the Chub and Chaser boss, and once again my strategy was to have the spirit summons take aggro, while I sat back and chucked night comets at them. And this somewhat worked, but I wasn't making it very far in my early attempts at this boss. So I took a little detour and grabbed a better spirit summon, and my subsequent attempts went much better. The Great Shield Boys are nice and all, but it was a little bit RNG dependent how long they would last. Some of the Black Flame attacks are pretty devastating to them. I eventually got a lucky attempt and was able to put the Godskin duo to rest. After making it past these extremely obnoxious birds and using unseen form to get past the Draconic tree sentinel, I was able to make it to Maliketh. And Maliketh was excruciatingly difficult, particularly his second phase. He's often jumping around so much that my night comets don't even hit him, and his AoE attacks are devastating to the shield boys. I had several sessions of fighting him a dozen or so times, going back to grind out more runes so I could increase my intelligence, and repeating this cycle. He's just so fast and does so much damage that anytime he gets close to me and I have aggro, it's over. I even went back to kill this guy in order to get my shield boys to plus 10. Luckily he has like 10 HP. Back to Maliketh, it really wasn't looking good. There wasn't very many attempts where I could do a significant amount of damage to him once he had gone phase 2. This was such a tense moment of triumph for me. This had to have taken me over 50 attempts. I was euphoric. Then I release the rune of death or something, and I have no idea what this means. So maybe the lore people can leave me a comment explaining it, but Something happens, and then we end up fighting Gideon, who was barely an obstacle, by the way. Sorry, Gideon. He tried to be smart, but he didn't use Reddit to optimize his build like I did, so get wrecked. On to Godfrey/Horoah Loux, and he's normally like a huge challenge in most of my playthroughs, as he has a ton of health, a ton of poise, and a ton of AoE attacks to deal with summon. But this playthrough, he was not a problem at all, as I beat him on my first try. Yeah, I'm surprised too. Yeah, the mighty Horoah Loux. I will say he's kind of weak to the shield boys. On to the final boss. Can a Reddit mod slay the god that he doesn't even believe in? Well, it wasn't easy at first. With the Great Shield Boys, I could somewhat consistently make it past Radagon, but the Elden Beast, I could barely even make it an eighth of his health in without getting deleted. In fact, the Elden Beast has a few attacks that I think are completely undodgeable for our Reddit mod friend. With his 20% slowdown and always fat rolling, there are certain attacks that he simply cannot dodge. And this is true for most late game bosses as well, but with the Elden Beast, most of my summons are almost certainly dead, or he has a way of killing them almost instantly, so I have no health. Take a look, this is the furthest I made it in any of my nearly 100 attempts. I did try a few other summons, at least the ones that would be obtainable for a Reddit mod. So by the way, the Evergaol ones are generally off limits because the Reddit mod is completely unable to defeat Black Knife Tish one-on-one. But these summons were just as useless for the Elden Beast fight, and even more useless for the Radagon fight, because the shield boys could at least take his aggro for the majority of the time. With my low stamina and zero faith in Arcane, I'm very limited in the number of strategies that I can actually execute. Using other spells is generally not productive because Radagon is programmed to deflect them. I can't use Geyser due to low stamina, so yep. After a little under 100 attempts, I think I'm ready to declare this impossible. I never even got Elden Beast to half health. So to answer the question in the title, no, a Reddit mod cannot defeat Elden Ring. And it's hilariously ironic that the assumed atheist Reddit mod gets stuck on the final boss that is the god of this world. So yeah, I think that's a fitting end to this run. Or is it the end? Should the Reddit mod take on the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC? Leave a like on this video if you think so. If this video does well, I will have the Reddit mod fight the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. I really need the likes on this particular video. It lets YouTube know that I am capable of switching games and still being entertaining. The YouTube algorithm generally frowns upon switching subjects like this, so hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Let me know what type of challenge run you think I should do next. Should I put other characters into Elden Ring? I will be returning to Minecraft soon as well. What should I do there? Let me know what you think. Subscribe for more nonsense like this, and I'll see you all in a few days for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Bye now.